We have a full slate of college football games coming up tomorrow. So we're going to go ahead and give you our predictions for some of the biggest games of the week. Starting it off, we are going to have Oregon and Northwestern. Not exactly a big game, but it's a conference matchup a little bit earlier than you generally see those. And the number four team in our mind is going to be in action, and they're going on the road, albeit to a not necessarily home field advantage for Northwestern. The Ducks are favored by 4 touchdowns. Not really much to say here. We've got them winning, and we have them doing it by even more than that. I think Oregon covers easily. We're taking them by minus 34 and a half.
Next game up is Clemson and Georgia Tech, a very highly anticipated game considering that Clemson has not looked very good in the last couple of weeks, and Georgia Tech is looking very good, led by Haynes King, an experienced quarterback. This is going to be a really interesting game. I don't think the AP polls have given Georgia Tech enough respect as of yet. That win against Colorado in Boulder, I think is still pretty impressive. This game could easily go either way. ESPN has Clemson favored by 3.5, but we think worst case scenario, Georgia Tech loses by a field goal to Clemson. With the home field advantage, I think Georgia Tech can actually knock off Clemson pretty early on in the season, and that'll be a big turning point for Clemson. If they get the win here, then Clemson is still in playoff contention, but a loss to Georgia Tech throws the season into jeopardy, and it might be a wasted season with such a star-studded roster.
And we don't necessarily think that Clemson is a bad team. I do just want to emphasize that point. They have a lot of talent still. They absolutely can win this game. We just really think that Georgia Tech is not getting the respect that they deserve. And this was a game in the preseason that we also heavily talked about. So we've just been high on Georgia Tech for a while. And I really do think they can get it done this week and move to 3-0. The next game is Alabama and Wisconsin. Now, Bama had a very disappointing first game against Florida State where they did lose, and their fans have a lot of things in question. Wisconsin, on the other hand, has really also looked not great so far, but they haven't lost a game yet. That is going to change when they go on the road to Tuscaloosa. I don't care what Alabama did against Florida State. This Wisconsin team has looked terrible so far this year, despite winning both of their games. I would be shocked if they even made this close against Alabama. We have the Tide favored by 16 and a half, just a little bit under the ESPN spread. And there was a slight typo as well. Alabama is ranked in our poll at number 25. They are not ranked as it says there on the screen.
The next game up is where game day will be at, and that is for Georgia at Tennessee. Tennessee was a team we were not very high on going into the season with Nico Iamaleava transferring out, but Joey Aguilar has looked very comfortable in this Volunteers offense, and Georgia had a little slip up last week against Austin PA, and if they can't bring enough offensive firepower to this game, especially at Neyland Stadium, they're going to be in for a tough game. Georgia is still favored by 3.5 points here, but once again, worst case scenario, Tennessee loses by a field goal and a couple extra points here at 4.5 for us. But I think Tennessee, with the home field advantage and with the momentum they have, and also with Georgia not having as much momentum, they are in a perfect scenario to get a huge win over Georgia and leap forward into the AP rankings.
The next game is Pitt and West Virginia, a huge rivalry game. And it typically is a very close game, which I think is why ESPN only has the spread around a touchdown. I think Pitt so far has looked like a significantly better team than West Virginia. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if this does end up being decided by around a field goal. But from what I've seen so far from these teams, I think you have to put Pitt as at least 10-point favorites. They do look significantly better. They are not ranked in the AP poll, but they are ranked in our poll. We have them at number 21.
And I think a big thing for this game, too, is that West Virginia will be without their lead running back, Jaheim White, for the rest of the season. He was a big focal point on this offense when he returned from last season. And without him, I think Pitt is just going to have way too much firepower for West Virginia to keep up. And that's why we do have this spread at minus 11.5 in favor of Pitt. Next game, another one a lot of people are looking forward to, the USF Bulls against the Miami Hurricanes. Miami looking like one of the best teams in the country, but USF arguably has the best resume in the country as of right now with wins over Boise State, who was in the playoffs last year, and still some people's favorites to be that group of five representative in the playoffs this year, as well as a win at the Swamp over the Florida Gators. But this game, it's really going to be a test for both of these teams. Is USF for real? Is Byron Brown a legitimate Heisman candidate? And can they pull off the magic on the road once again against one of the best teams in the country? Or is Carson Beck and this Miami defense going to be too much for them to handle? ESPN thinks Miami is going to run away with this one, 18.5 point favorites. But we are pretty confident that USF can keep this game within 10 points. I think with this explosive offense, they will have their moments and will have Miami on the ropes maybe at times, but I think this Miami defense is just too good for the Bulls to pull off another upset here. Miami moves to 3-0 and USF gets their first loss of the season.
Next up is Ole Miss and Arkansas. This is a really tough game to predict. I think Arkansas is definitely being underrated by a lot of people right now. We don't have either of these teams ranked, and to be honest, Ole Miss is a little bit closer to making it into the poll. We've had a little bit of discussion with getting them in. In the AP poll, they are number 17 in the country. I definitely don't think they should be ranked that high. ESPN also has the Rebels favored by around 8 points. I think that in this game, quarterback experience is going to be a major factor. And Austin Simmons is very young. Talon Green has experience. He's going to make this a very close game, but I still think the Rebels can get it done at home by around a field goal.
Next game up, another highly anticipated matchup. Florida looking to bounce back from that loss to USF. But they're going up against LSU, the number 2 team in the country in our opinions, but the number 3 in the AP poll. And this one going to be really, really close. Obviously, you have all that returning production on LSU's side, especially with Garrett Nussmeier as their starting quarterback. And this defense has looked legit for the first 2 weeks of the season. And I think Florida, even though they kind of stalled out a little bit against USF, especially at home, still has a lot in the tank. I think DJ Lagway will rebound in this game. ESPN has LSU as 8.5 point favorites. We think it'll be a little bit closer at just around a touchdown, still in favor of LSU. Death Valley is one of the toughest places to play at in the country, arguably the toughest place to play at in college football. Florida will put up a good fight, but the Tigers get the win and move to 3-0.
Next up, one of the biggest matchups of the week, and in our opinion, could be one of the closest matchups, as we have these teams ranked 14 and 15 respectively. Texas A&M going on the road to face Notre Dame. Notre Dame made a pretty impressive comeback and almost was able to pull off a win on the road against Miami. Texas A&M so far has not played that level of competition. I think that is going to be a major factor in this game. And Notre Dame has the home field advantage as well. CJ Carr showed flashes at the end of that Miami game, and if he plays like that during this game against Texas A&M, I do believe that the Fighting Irish will be able to get the win by around a touchdown at home. We are in agreement with the ESPN spread here.
And this is a huge game for Notre Dame as well because Texas A&M is really their only good opponent left on their schedule. They play Navy and Boise State a little bit later on, but I don't think they'll be ranked at this point. If Notre Dame loses this game at home, Notre Dame is going to have a really tough chance at making the college football playoffs this year. So this is a must-win game for the Irish. Another interesting game after that, Vandy against South Carolina. Now, Vanderbilt just beat Virginia Tech, and more convincingly than South Carolina did. South Carolina's kind of struggled offensively in the first half of their first 2 games, but I still think that Lenore Sellers is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Diego Pavia is certainly making a case for himself, though, in the first couple weeks. but I think the defensive experience of South Carolina, especially at home here, is going to be the biggest factor. ESPN has South Carolina favored by 5.5. We think it's going to be a little bit closer. We are respecting Vandy, especially with that win over Virginia Tech being better than South Carolina's at a neutral site. Really could go either way. Wouldn't be surprised if Vandy actually pulls off this upset, but we are still going to go with the Gamecocks for right now to move to 3-0.
Next up is the Darian Mensah revenge game, Duke and Tulane. This one I think is going to be very close. ESPN has the spread at 1.5. Could probably see one of these two teams making it a little bit more one-sided, but not completely away from being a one-score game. When you look at Duke, it's hard to get past the score from last week, but they really did just beat themselves, which makes me think that they have a great shot to win this game on the road against Tulane. But so far, I've been impressed with Jake Retzlaff and this Tulane offense. This I feel like is going to be a high scoring game and very close, but I kind of like Tulane to get this win by around 6 points at home and really showed Darian Mensah that he would have had a better chance to make the college football playoffs had he stayed with the Green Wave.
And our final matchup of week 3 is going to be Minnesota versus Cal. Cal is one of the most surprising teams to us this season. We were initially very high on them right after the 2024 season ended. And then when everyone left in the transfer portal, our expectations plummeted. But now with their true freshman quarterback, who I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name because I'm just going to botch it anyway. But with him as their starting quarterback, this offense has been really, really explosive and one that has given teams a lot of problems. They looked very good against an Oregon State team that we thought was going to be really good this year, and they've fallen well short of expectations. But Minnesota has also looked very good this season. Beat Buffalo, who I think was a little bit of a contender for a group of 5 bid to the college football playoffs if everything went right, and then handled business last week against their group of 5 opponent. This game really could go either way. ESPN has Minnesota favored by 2.5 points. We're actually going to flip it around in Cal's favor, considering this is at home, and that's quite a long road trip for the Golden Gophers. But Drake Lindsey and Darius Taylor could make this a win for Minnesota if they can get going early on. But we're going to rock with the true freshman and the explosive offense of the Golden Bears here to get the win and move to 3-0. So thank you guys for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more of our content. And we will see you in our next video.